This is the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast, episode 35.
And the important question that we have for you today is crunchy cookie or chewy cookie? You decide. Send me a SpeakPipe message.
Are you okay?
I don't think so.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast. My name is John Melly, and this is the podcast dedicated to teaching in-depth and advanced marketing strategies for people in the voiceover and audio production professions. My goal is to help you make more money by showing you ways to leverage your time, charge more for your talents, and allow you to spend more time doing the things you want to do in your life. Hey there, it's John. How are you? Welcome to this episode. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I am really excited about my guest today. His name is Andrew Locke, and as you'll hear in the opening part of my interview with Andrew, I've known Andrew for several years, and he has been instrumental in helping me shape the business that I have today. And we're going to talk about a lot of different things, but listen, Andrew's an expert in Disney, Walt Disney, and how Disney markets all of their various businesses. And it's really brilliant. So I invite you to take a listen to that before we dive into Andrew's interview. Thanks so much for sharing the podcast with your friends. The number of downloads continues to grow. As of this recording, there have been 27,424 downloads from all around the world. So thank you very much. If you are interested in connecting with me more, check out the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast groups on Facebook and LinkedIn. The two are different from each other. We get different audiences in different social media platforms. There's a hidden marketing lesson in that tip that I just gave you. So let's not spend any more time talking about that. I know you want to hear this interview with Andrew, and I will check back with you at the end of our conversation. All right, let's go talk to Andrew. Well, welcome back. As I mentioned in the earlier part of the program, my guest today is my good friend, Andrew Locke. And I met Andrew, gosh, how many years ago has it been now, Andrew? About
it's
6?
It's been quite a few years.
It has. It has. And it's always kind of fun to go back through your journey because on how your career takes a different turn and how these different paths take you to different adventures. And Andrew was definitely one of those. And I remember listening to you be interviewed by Bill Glazer, who's another friend of mine, and he interviewed you for the Glazer Kennedy CD, and you talked about how to use eBay for lead generation, the hide 'em, hold 'em, and hook 'em thing that you were doing, which was brilliant. And then we started corresponding by email, and you had me do an audiobook for you and other website stuff, and then it led to Sterling and Jay, and
that's right.
And
the whole network.
Well, yeah, and then that led to Pat Flynn with his Smart Passive Income podcast, doing the intros for his show, and a number of other people. So it's fascinating how you meet a person and then they can literally change your career. And you were one of those people for me. And I'm glad to have you on the program.
Pleasure, yeah.
Yeah, well, before we dive in a little bit, I want to tell everybody about Andrew. He's got this show, a web TV program. It's a free web TV show that helps entrepreneurs to get more done and have more fun, as he says. And the title of the show is Help My Business Sucks. And the show's become the #1 most popular marketing web TV show in the Apple iTunes Store. And it's beat other well-known traditional business training competitors like the Harvard Business Review, Advertising Age, and Business Week. And someone once said that the show has become more popular than a supermodel at a Catholic boarding school, which I think is hysterical. Who said that?
I don't remember now. People have said all kinds of things about me.
Yeah, that's true. Andrew's been very helpful to me, and I've learned an awful lot from him. I was also in your mastermind group a couple years ago.
That's right.
And you took me through a fascinating tour of Disney World, and you're doing that again.
Yeah, that's a big part, actually, of what I'm doing now. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Very cool. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the program today, though, was that your tagline for your pretty much all of your marketing is everything is marketing and marketing is everything. And I was hoping that you could elaborate a little bit on that and maybe tell everyone a little about your story and how you became so interested in marketing.
Sure, yeah. I guess it goes back to even before I knew what marketing was. And I was very much an entrepreneur. I was always looking at different ways to bump up my pocket money.
Right.
And so I had a potato round for a while where I went to a wholesaler, got bags of potatoes, and I couldn't even drive back then. So I had my parents take me. And so I would divide the potatoes up into smaller bags. And I just went from door to door selling them to little old ladies who were delighted not to have to carry the heavy bags of potatoes back from the supermarket. So that was kind of one of my early escapades. And, as I sort of got more into entrepreneurial endeavors and trying different things, that's when I really realized that marketing is at the center of things. And I think it's one of those words that, for people that aren't really into business, it sounds like a very kind of intimidating business word, and there's all kinds of definitions. If you look online, many people say that it incorporates advertising, which I can see why they would think that is the case, and different ways to promote a product or a service, and I think that's true too. But I studied Walt Disney right from an early age, right from actually when I was at school in my teens. I was fascinated by him because of what he accomplished, really against all odds. A lot of people don't realize what a hard life he had in the early days, and it certainly wasn't. He wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
No.
He worked his way up really from scratch. In studying the success of Disney, because they really are consistently voted one of the world's most admired companies, certainly consistently in the top 3 for decades now. So they are a business that we should study. And in doing that, I realized that Disney as a company really do believe, and they practice what they preach, that everything is marketing. I mean, they didn't phrase it in that way, but that's the phrase is something that I came up with. But if you look at what they do and how they do it, they believe that every aspect of their business, whether it's someone behind the scenes or in front of the scenes or, a product or a service, when someone interacts with a employee, which they call cast members, or if someone buys one of their products or spends a day at the park or anything like that, Disney believes that the impression that leaves someone with is marketing. And I have found that to be the case. I completely agree with it, because if you think about it, if you narrow down the definition of marketing just to its very limited definition, which is what most people believe, which is that it's basically a way to promote your products and services. That's the core definition of marketing.
Right.
Persuading people to become interested in what you have to sell. And that is certainly true. But if you think about it on a wider scale, really everything in your business should come under that banner. And if you think about it, if someone, let's say that, you have an accounts department and someone calls into your accounts department. If the person that answers the phone is very abrupt and maybe you need some help with something or you don't understand something, that person who works in accounts, which is nothing to do with marketing, their influence on the person that calls in is substantial.
Right.
And that is marketing. So, in other words, the end result of that interaction is either good or bad, and it leaves the person with an impression about your business, either good or bad.
Right.
And that's why I believe it is appropriate to say that everything is marketing and that marketing is everything. Everything that you do in your business can be traced back in some way or another to marketing, which is persuading people to have a good or bad impression of what you do. ultimately. And marketing is everything, because without it, you're not going to get very far. So everything is marketing, and marketing is everything. So you could think of any aspect of a business. You know, if you look at Disney again and think about their, what do they call them? They don't call them janitors, they call them custodial. Yeah, that's a new word to me when I,
Custodians,
when I moved to the States.
Yeah.
So that department, you know, you could say, well, it's a very functional department. But actually, it is a marketing department as far as Disney is concerned, because guess what? The number one reason, or the number one thing that people say when they visit Disney and they comment about Disney, the number one thing that comes up over and over again, more than anything else, more than people mentioning the rides, the attractions, the shows, the food, is the cleanliness.
Right.
More people visiting Disney comment on the cleanliness than anything else. And so Disney, realizing that, puts an enormous effort into that, both in the quality of the work, but also the way that those workers interact with guests. You know, as they're picking up trash and cleaning the streets or the bathrooms and so on. There's always a very positive experience. So again, that can be related directly back to marketing. So that's why I say everything is marketing, and marketing is everything.
Right. It makes a lot of sense. I remember when we were on that tour that you were giving us, the behind-the-scenes tour of Disney, and there was this woman who was not in the custodial staff per se, but she was, I don't know what department she was in, probably guest relations or something like that, but she was giving us the guided tour, and as we were walking down the sidewalk, she was, if she saw a wrapper on the ground, she was bending over and picking them up and finding the trash can and throwing them out. So everybody who works at Disney is part of the quote-unquote custodial staff. So that found that interesting. But I remember you pointing that out to us, too.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating. And everybody shares that responsibility because it's so important.
Right. Hey, I mean, who wants to go to a dump? I mean, that's what makes it so special, is because, unfortunately, a lot of people just, you know, they're tossing stuff out windows and all that kind of stuff. The rest of the world is so kind of dirty that if it's so clean, that does make it special by its uniqueness, unfortunately.
The other funny thing about that, you know, the aspect of that being the number one comment, is that that's not something that is proprietary to Disney. You know, if you look at other theme parks, I mean, Lucy and I went to Knott's Berry Farm in California, you know, which is a stone's throw from Disney, and you know, it's very well established. But we were so shocked at the contrast between Disney and you know, the cleanliness there, and they struggle. I mean, the park was empty. You know, it wasn't a good experience, and yet how interesting that number one comment that people make about Disney, that's completely duplicatable, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's something that any other theme park in the world could implement. Just the same, you know, Disney doesn't have the monopoly on cleanliness.
No.
So it's so interesting, you know, that people make that comment because they make the contrast when they go to these other theme parks. And that was something that Walt, you know, instituted. He wanted it to be so much cleaner than others. And yet they could do the same thing. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's something within their control that really wouldn't cost them a lot of money. It's interesting.
Not at all, yeah.
First a comment, then a question to follow up with that. You know, you were talking about the success of Disney, and I think I heard something on the news the other day that, again, Disney as a whole, ABC, all their properties, exceeded investor expectations like for the 10th quarter in a row. And the person giving the financial report said maybe the analysts should revise their earning estimates because they're so, you know, Disney continues to exceed them. My question is this, that a lot of the folks listening to this podcast are in the voiceover and or audio production businesses.
Okay.
And, you know, Dan Kennedy's always talking about, you know, people should guard against the thought of, well, my business is different. So if we take the litter topic for Disney and keeping everything clean, how can we apply that to a service business? Where do you see other businesses? Because you advise businesses. Where do you see businesses making mistakes and things that they could do to quote unquote, keep their theme park clean?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest single thing is that, or biggest trap that most businesses fall into, and this would certainly apply to the voiceover industry, because it applies to every industry, is that most business owners, whether it be a small or large business or, solo entrepreneur, they copy what other businesses do, thinking that that is the way to do it. And the truth is, first of all, that's rarely the way to do it. You get kind of a lemming syndrome. And secondly, the downside to that is that you don't stand out from the crowd. And, most business owners complain that, they're not getting noticed and there's nothing to separate themselves from the competition. And that's the point. They're not doing anything different to get noticed.
Right.
Disney, in their attention to detail, in their outstanding customer service, in their cleanliness, and in so many other areas, are completely different to any other theme park out there. And that's how they've built this incredible empire. I mean, I'm using the theme parks as an example because it's one that I'm very familiar with, but you can look at those types of things in other aspects of their businesses too. Like, for example, with the cruise lines, I mean, they reinvented the cruise industry as far as attracting kids, because traditionally cruises were for, either sort of the 18 to 30, party goers on a cruise line like Carnival,
right,
or the old age pensioners on most of the other cruise lines. But Disney came in and said, we can do this really well for a completely different target audience, which is families, with young kids. And sure enough, they've done that within a few years and just dominated that particular sector that everyone else had ignored. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that they created from scratch, even though there were countless other cruise lines out there.
Billions of dollars for the Disney cruises? Really?
So yeah,
Wow.
They've only got four ships, I think it is right now.
Yeah.
But it's a phenomenally successful industry that they created. So that aspect of kind of ignoring what other people are doing and creating your own blue ocean, something that is genuinely different and that inherently stands out from the crowd, that's what most businesses should be doing. But it's, most just go the safe route of, well, what's so-and-so doing? Okay, let's copy what they're doing.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I've talked several times in several episodes and had a number of guests who've created their own product using their voiceover talents and their production skills. And, there are these voiceover websites where literally tens of thousands of people will set up a page, and then it's a lead generation site. So people can go there and say, hey, I have this project I need voiced. And then it becomes this whole commoditization of the voiceover industry, because you've really, the only thing that people can do there is compete on price. I mean, they can do things and, put their credentials up of like, I've done this, that, and the other thing, and some big name advertisers they've voiced for and stuff like that. But really, for the person going to something like that, seeking voiceover talent, they're really looking to see who they can get it for the lowest price, I think.
Sure.
And you've got all these people competing for a limited number of jobs, whereas, like you just said, Disney created something from scratch and made lots of money from it. There's no reason that a voiceover person or a production person can't do the same thing, right?
And absolutely. I think what it comes down to ultimately with that side of things is understanding the marketplace too, because if you look at those directory sites with listings, it's not really going to give you a impression of what the customers actually want. And so one of the things that I always encourage people to do in any industry is, rather than falling into the trap of providing what you think they want, is actually finding out. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. I mean, from directly contacting people to browsing forums and, industry-related resources where you can actually get a more accurate understanding. because we are not our customer. We may think that we have an accurate understanding of what people want, but rarely is that the case. And so that's the first step really, is understanding what people actually want. If you look online, and browse forums and things like that, very quickly you probably find comments like, and these are just examples, but typically you'll find things like, unreliability is a factor. So, choosing a voiceover artist could be that someone who's reliable and available at, short notice might be a big factor for someone. So, there's all kinds of things that are important to different people. And again, coming back to that other aspect of being able to stand out from the crowd, there's nothing wrong with making an irresistible offer to someone who you think would be a good fit for your services so that they can get to know, like, and trust you. If there's a sea of voiceover artists and talent available on these directory sites and things like that, well, you have to make yourself stand out from the crowd. So if that means doing something that would be considered an irresistible offer to get your foot in the door, then it's well worth it. Because ultimately business is done with people that we know, like, and trust.
Right.
So again, most people don't do that. They may, just have a listing, they have their fee on there, and then they wonder why they're not getting any work. Well, that's one piece of the puzzle. You have to hustle and, make the right connections. And like I say, make an irresistible offer to prove your worth the first time round. And if all those other boxes are checked, like customer service and reliability and all those other things that you would know about in the industry, then they are going to come back to you.
All of that just makes sense, just to build trust with your prospective clients and things of that nature. But, we've spent a lot of time talking about Disney, and I know you are a huge student of Disney, the company, and also of Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Can you share some stuff that's the neat thing about Disney, and that's what makes this such a powerful example, is that I bet most people listening to this podcast have consumed a Disney product in some way.
Yeah.
Being an ABC or sports channels or the cruises or the theme parks. I know you're a student of that. Can you share some kind of insider information on some of the things that they do?
Sure. And just to clarify and so that everybody listening does realize the extent of Disney's success. Last year, their annual revenue was $45 billion, which is just a figure that we can't possibly comprehend. A company that's doing tens or even hundreds of millions is deemed to be phenomenally successful. But, when you get into that type of billion numbers, it takes it to a whole nother level.
It's rarefied air.
Yeah. We can't really comprehend it. But the theme parks, interestingly, generate a third of that revenue.
Wow.
So, as a component, they are the single biggest component of the company. I mean, I've got so many stories to illustrate, why they're such a good company to learn from. But one interesting thing that I'll share, pricing as a strategy, is that when you approach a Disney theme park and you see the pricing boards over the kiosks.
Yeah, the ticket booths.
Interestingly, they display the highest prices first. So there's this thing that says choose how many days you want to play. And it says the more you play, the less you pay per day, which is a very, very clever line. They sell tickets up to 10 days. And so the 10-day ticket, which is, of course, hundreds of dollars, is listed first. And then it goes down a scale, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which to a casual observer it might seem odd. But It's a very strategic thing that they do. The reason why they do it that way, a couple of reasons, actually. First of all, it's because the first line at the top is the one that they want you to see first. It's the one that most people will read first. And that's the one they want you to buy. In other words, it's kind of like the default perceived option. In terms of psychology, the first one seems to be the default. Does that make sense?
Yes, to me it does.
Yeah. So then the other aspect of this, which is really interesting, is that because it's a high number, high price, as you scan down the list, which is ultimately what most people buy, and Disney knows that most people are going to buy the 1 or 2 day or the lower numbers.
Right.
As you scan down the list, it makes the lower prices seem less. And again, it's a very clever psychology principle that when you compare a big number with smaller numbers, it makes the smaller number appear smaller or feel smaller than if you just placed the smaller number on its own.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's a very, very fascinating psychology to it. So that's what Disney does. Again, even if you don't fully understand what I just explained, understand the principle that these details matter. And there's all kinds of clever strategies that you can do around every aspect of your business. And, it's worth researching and learning these advanced marketing strategies because it can impact your business very substantially.
Yeah, I mean, and they actually tell you right up front what they're doing. The more you play, the more you save. So
right, that's it.
Yeah, then the price per day goes down the longer you stay.
Exactly.
But the brilliant thing behind it, if I'm getting this right, though, is if they can get you to come to the park 10 days, then you're going to spend all that time buying more and more food. But if you're you're there for a shorter period of time, they're going to make it up on the front end by having a higher ticket price per day.
That's exactly right. They realize that, and everything is set up around that.
Interesting.
Again, it would be very feasible for Disney to have charged an all-in-one price, including everything inside the park, or other than sort of gifts, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
But of course, they know that that's not necessary. It's not required, and by not offering that, the all-inclusive, they do make a lot more money. Something else that's very interesting with the pricing strategy is they always offer upsells at the kiosk. And the two biggest upsells for them are Park Hopper, which is the ability to jump around from park to park within the same day, which is an add-on fee of, I think, $50-something last time I checked.
Yep.
And the other one is the option for your ticket not to expire. So if you buy a regular ticket, whether it's multi-day or single day, it expires within 14 days. So if you buy like a 10-day ticket, you have to use those 10 days within 14 days.
Okay.
So if you don't want the ticket to expire, then there's another add-on fee. Now, those are the two biggest upsells. And the interesting thing about those upsells is that both of those options don't cost Disney a dime to fulfill. Think about it. They're pure profit. They're selling air.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Park Hopper doesn't cost them anything. Neither does the option to add the no expiration date on the ticket. So they're selling air. So there's two lessons there for any business. First of all, always offer upsells. So I'm sure you have figured out some ways to upsell your clients. Would you like me to... Well, yeah, for example, a quick turnaround can be an upsell. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great option. Or, for example, would you like me to professionally edit this script? If it's someone new to the business, that could be an upsell too. There's all kinds of ways that you could add on other services. So the first lesson is always offer an upsell. So first of all, think about what you can offer, and then always offer it.
Right.
But secondly, as an extension of that, try and offer upsells that don't cost you anything. If it's a little bit of extra time, on your part, then usually the value would, make sure that the value far outweighs, in terms of what you charge, should outweigh what you provide, obviously. So
sure, yeah.
the more that you can do that by selling air, as it were, the better.
Yeah, that's true. That's an amazing thing. Now, I know you do several things. I mean, you've got all kinds of products and services. Can you share like an upsell that you use?
Sure, yeah. So if I'm selling an audio download, one of the logical upsells would be to send that on a CD. So, there's not not everybody wants to listen to an MP3 or has the capacity to do that, believe it or not. It depends on the sector. The audience, particularly, older ones often prefer CD. So that would be an example. Same thing with if I was offering an ebook, then a logical upsell would be to give them, or as an upsell, to offer a printed version of that. It doesn't even need to be a book.
Right.
It could just be a printed version that you print on your printer. So those things, you can definitely charge a premium fee to do things like that. So there's all kinds of ways to very simply add on upsells in any business, and it's a big way of increasing income because, especially if you're maxed out with clients, and if you're a voiceover artist, there's only so many hours in the day to use your voice.
Right.
There's a limit on the number of clients that you can take in. So
right.
If your business is doing very well and you have lots of clients, the next logical question is, how can I make more from the existing clients? And upsells are the perfect way to do that.
That's really, really good advice. One thing, we've talked about the vastness of the Disney thing, and, even if you haven't been to a Disney park, you've probably consumed a Disney product. And obviously, they own ABC networks.
Yeah.
And one program...
Many other networks as well.
Yeah.
ESPN, for example.
Right. One program, Ann and I will watch a lot of DVDs because we have a great library in town. And we'll just go there and get stuff. But one show that we've kind of gotten into is their show Once Upon a Time. Have you watched any of that?
Yeah, I have once or twice.
It's a brilliant show if you spend any time with it because they've taken all of the nursery rhymes, things that Disney has made a fortune with over time with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Sleeping Beauty, Rumpelstiltskin, all of these stories that we grew up with, and it's all in the public domain, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was Walt's genius, or one of his many, was creating those stories from public domain. Yeah.
Right. So the whole Once Upon a Time is a take on what happens if all the happy endings have gone away, like the evil queen puts a curse on Snow White and Prince Charming after their wedding. And basically,
very clever, yeah.
Yeah, she says basically, okay, all the happy endings disappear, and she puts them into this state of amnesia in this town called Storybrooke, Maine. And then they do all these mashups where all the different fairy tales kind of interact, the characters in the different fairy tales interact with one another, and they don't know who each other is in their town, and then the curse gets broken and all of that. But what's fascinating is, I don't know if you know the show at all, but one of the things, this is an example that I want to share with you, and it's all about cross-promotion. And Disney, I think, is brilliant in their use of cross-promoting all of their different properties within the other properties. So Jiminy Cricket, from the story of Pinocchio, becomes Dr. Hopper. He becomes a psychiatrist because he's the conscience, right? So he's the counselor in the town. Well, the character, Dr. Hopper, has a dog. Now, the dog is a Dalmatian, and the name of the dog is Pongo, who is, I think, if I'm correct, the lead dog that's owned by the owner in 101 Dalmatians. So they've got all of these little things that nothing happens by accident in the show. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, the evil queen...
That's very clever, yeah.
Yeah, the evil queen, she's the mayor of the town, but she's got an apple tree in her backyard. And the apples look beautiful, and so all these things that they weave and weave and weave, and everything is all tied together because they've got so much that they can pull from. They say, oh, you know what? Instead of just making the dog a beagle or something like that, they make it the Dalmatian and give it the name from 101 Dalmatians, and they're subtly reinforcing the property. I'm sitting there watching this show. I'm being entertained by it, but I'm also sitting there watching this going, this is brilliant.
Brilliant.
And of course, they've got Shark Tank, too, which is another great show.
Oh, I love that show. What astonishes me, actually, with Shark Tank is that, how many seasons into it. I'm not sure. It must be, I mean, a bunch.
Yeah.
It's been going for years.
It's like 6 years
and
now.
Yet you still get people on there that clearly haven't watched the show,
Yeah.
pitching, making the same fundamental mistakes that have been, addressed so many times, like grossly overvaluing the company based on the fact that there's no sales currently, things like that. That just makes my mind boggle. Like, if it was me on there, I'd be studying every episode.
Right. Yeah, they'll come in for like, I'm asking $250,000 for 3% valuation.
Right.
What?
Crazy. I mean, it's quite, it makes for good viewing, but, you kind of feel sorry for these people that they destroyed their own opportunity, really.
And I don't know if I'll include this in the interview, but I've read something about the whole thing about getting onto Shark Tank. If you get on the show, as soon as you mention a business, mention it. Then
I can believe that. Yeah.
The producers and or some of the people there own a part of your company. It's like 5 to 10% of the company.
Well, I guess that does make sense now because it's much more valuable than an ad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they know that the sales are going to go through the roof.
Right.
Even if they don't get a deal.
Right. I was watching this thing. There was a company, Scotty Vest, which is like a...
Yeah.
And I went to his website because he kind of got trashed by some people on how he wouldn't mention something. And he knew going into it that if he mentioned this other part of his business, then they would take ownership of 5 to 10% of that company. And so the hosts, like Cuban and Mr. Wonderful and all those other folks, they were baiting him basically to get him to mention the name of the other company, and he wouldn't do it. He was playing a verbal chess match, which the viewer, you would sit there and you go, what's going on here? And that's
really interesting.
That's the backstory. So anyway,
that completely makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were kind of trashing him a little bit, and he's like, I can't mention this because if I do, I'm going to give away 10% of this company, and I'm not even here for that company. I'm here for something else. So it's fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Do you have anything else you want to share, or? You've been very generous with your time. I don't want to take up too much of it.
Yeah, pleasure. Maybe I can just talk about how people can find the show and then the Disney experience.
Oh, yeah, please do. Help My Business Sucks, and you've got all kinds of great resources on that page, too. But it's not even that. That's not the domain. Why don't you tell everybody how they can find it?
So I do the web TV show at helpmybusiness.com. And if you go there, all the episodes are free. They're designed to help small business owners and entrepreneurs with their marketing, and it applies to any business. So it's a great resource. I've been doing that since 2008, really pre the popularity of web TV shows. So
right.
I always like to mention that one, helpmybusiness.com. And
you built the whole set yourself. I remember you gave me the behind-the-scenes tour of it, and you were helping other people start out their own web TV shows too, and it was really, really cool. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, I that's something that I like to do, is help other people get established in that world.
Yeah.
Just as you have become the go-to guy for voiceover businesses, that's something that a lot of people look to me for is the video
right
podcast, as Apple likes to call them. But yeah, it's and again, talking about standing out from the crowd, because my background originally was in video production. We didn't talk about that, but in the world of TV in England, one of the ways that I could separate myself was by having a very high quality studio style production, because I knew how to do that. It was something that was very within my core skill set.
Right.
For other people, that's going to be intimidating, but they'll have other things that can help them stand out from the crowd. My accent is another thing that helps me stand out from the crowd because most of my audience is American. And so I use that. I often will, use very British sounding words, by design, just because that gets attention and people will ask me about them and so on. So I leverage the things that are my core strengths, and everybody has those things, you know.
I
Some
love
people
that.
are very good with humor, and so they can leverage that, you know. Or if you're a very serious person, then you can leverage that. You know, that's why it's such a big mistake to just copy other people. You've got to you are the best one of you that there is on the planet, and so you know you have unique strengths and abilities, and you know that's anyway. I'm getting on my soapbox again.
It's a good message for people to hear, though. It really is.
Yeah.
And I took you off track. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's the gist of it. The other resource that I'll share is, in recent years, I've been taking groups of small business owners and entrepreneurs to Disney World in Florida. And what we do is we actually go behind the scenes, and I've created an arrangement with Disney to enable us to do that. And so, you know, it's really an incredible privilege to do that. They very closely guard their secrets. But
Right.
in that process, we can learn from Disney in a very, very intense and very fulfilling and productive way, because there's so many lessons that we can apply to any business, adapting what Disney does to any type of business. And so a few times a year I do that. It's a very life-changing experience, I think, to do it. I mean, you did it a few years ago.
Yeah, it was great.
And, you know, we've made improvements with it over each time that we do it. And so if you're interested in finding out more about that, you can go to magicalmarketingexperience.com. Again, that's magicalmarketingexperience.com. That has all the details. It's a fascinating insight that just a handful of people get to do, because, you know, Disney don't normally like to share their behind-the-scenes processes and systems and so on. But, you know, we go behind the scenes at all the parks and adapt what Disney does to the small business owner, which is, you know, it's a very fun and exciting as well as fulfilling trip to do that over 3 days.
Yeah, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Anne came with me on that adventure, and we had a blast. And just in general, I would recommend to people that they go on tours and trips like this. Another thing that has nothing to do with you, but Ann and I, a few years ago, we went down to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and then we took a trip out to the central part of Pennsylvania, where QVC is located. And we did a QVC studio tour there, which, Andrew, I got to tell you, it's fascinating, because, you know, they have to hit a certain dollar amount per minute.
Right.
To keep the lights on and make a profit and all that kind of stuff.
Work,
but we got to see behind the scenes of how they have all the different sets, and we went up on a balcony, and, you know, the lighting grid, you could walk across from one end of this place to the other with all the lights that they have up on their lighting grid.
Oh, yeah.
It was incredible. But they have just a totally aside from it, but this just shows you how detailed really, really smart businesses are. They have this thing where the host is talking about the product that they're selling, and the host has an earpiece. And what they can do is they can track sales real time, and they'll notice that they say, okay, well, this blue handbag has double stitching, and it really reinforces the bag, so it increases the life of the thing. And then they'll move on to the next thing. And the peach handbag has this, that, and the other thing. Well, they'll see an uptick in sales when they say the double stitching. And so the producer will say, mention the double stitching again. And so you'll hear the host say something like, and, you know, just to tell you again that all of these handbags are double stitched, because what they're doing is it's like, okay, people are responding to that particular thing. So you go and you take these trips and these tours, and you do the behind the scenes things like you talk about and what you've made the arrangement with Disney to be able to do. Anybody in business who's got a curious mind should take advantage of these opportunities, because it can only help you grow your business.
Absolutely. That's so interesting about QVC. So did you know that they offered tours before you went, or was it sort of a chance?
I think Ann found out about it and said, I really want to do that. So I said, sure, I'll go. So, yeah, and this was back when Joan Rivers was still alive, and she's done a ton of stuff there at QVC. She actually gave, do you know Mike Rowe, who's the host of Deadliest Catch and all that kind of?
Right.
He was originally on QVC. That's how he started his whole thing. And he went in for an audition, and they basically said, okay, talk about auditions. The voiceover people will love this. They said, okay, we're going to give you an item, and we want you to sell it, and you have to go for 3 minutes without stopping. And they handed him a number 2 pencil. And they said, okay, go. And he talks about how he sold a number 2 pencil and how he had to go on for 3 minutes. And they, obviously he's gone on to bigger and better things, but he did a brilliant job, and, he's saying, you can take this number 2 pencil and write a love letter that will change your life. And this, I mean, it was really, really smart. And it's a reason why he got hired. But Joan Rivers saw him and said, I want you to co-host my show on QVC. So she helped him get his big start in TV and all that kind of stuff. So,
very interesting.
Yeah.
That's quite fascinating.
Yeah, I love stuff like that.
You made me want to go to visit QVC now. That's great.
Yeah, I was thinking if I ever do a mastermind group, I'm going to put something like that together where we all have to travel, and that will be the field trip, to check that out.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But anyway, so the websites again, Andrew, are helpmybusiness.com and Magical Marketing Experience.
You got it. That's it.
magicalmarketingexperience.com.
That's it.
Those are great. I want to thank you for spending some time here today. Is there any final words that you want to share with folks before we say goodbye?
Well, I think just to reiterate what we talked about, it is possible for any business to do well by, first of all, researching what other people are doing. Secondly, strategically offering something different to what they're doing and preferably better. And thirdly, finding out what customers want rather than thinking we know what they want. Those are the kind of key points I think that we discussed, in a nutshell. Obviously, a lot more details there, but it's a fascinating subject, and I really do believe that marketing is everything. It's the hub of any business. Unfortunately, we've seen so many examples through the years of great products and services that just end up dying, that sometimes don't even see the light of the day because they don't have the marketing component to them. The classic example that comes to mind was the Betamax versus VHS. There's no question about it that Betamax was a far better format, better picture quality, better in so many different aspects of it. But Sony dropped the ball on the marketing, and it was a lesson that they'd never repeated again because they lost out billions of dollars when VHS, was the dominant force. I mean, of course, we're going back many years now, but
sure. Yeah,
everything's been taken over by DVDs and Blu-rays now. But at the time, it was a colossal failure, and it did come back down to marketing because Sony had a much better product with Betamax. In fact, actually, ironically, a similar thing happened with the high-def DVDs because for a while there was the same scenario with Blu-ray versus HD DVD.
Yeah.
And interestingly, it was Sony that won this time.
Uh-huh.
I think they weren't going to have a repeat of the same situation because they were the ones that were the biggest advocates, or, they were involved in the technology for Blu-ray. And as a result, they didn't want to fail twice.
Yeah.
Having learned the lesson first time around. So and again, it was all about marketing. The best marketed product was the one that won.
Well, even the term Blu-ray sounds so much more sexy than HD.
Well, yeah, it all plays into it, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, there may actually be a real Blu-ray, but maybe they made it blue because that would be kind of cool. Who knows? But at any rate, but that would highlight the point even more that everything is marketing.
That's it.
So, well, Andrew, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been great chatting with you again and catching up, and I hope to see you soon. And everybody check out those web addresses, helpmybusiness.com and magicalmarketingexperience.com.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Andrew. Wasn't that cool? I mean, he knows so much. One thing I want to make sure that you understand, Andrew was mentioning the Magical Marketing Experience opportunity to go and get behind the scenes tour and experience at Disney. I want to be sure you understand that in no way do I have an affiliate relationship with Andrew on making that recommendation to you. I earn no commissions or referral fees from directing you to the Magical Marketing Experience. That is something you can do on your own. It was really, really cool. If you have the opportunity to take advantage of that, then by all means, please do. But I just want you to know that there is no affiliate commission with that recommendation at all. If you can do it, do it. It's well worth it. You'll be taking pages and pages of notes. So when I do have the opportunity to make a referral fee or commission, I will disclose that to you. I'm telling you right now that there is no financial arrangement between Andrew and I for this opportunity. So feel free to go ahead and take advantage of it, learn more, and connect with Andrew. Watch his show, Help My Business Sucks, at helpmybusiness.com. Great show. Lots of good information. They're typically about 15 minutes long. So, something you can watch when you're trying to take a break. So please check that out. Thank you very much for listening, and I will be back with you next week. Take care.
Our program originates in the Boston studios. We hope you'll join us again. Until then, we bid you au revoir, keep your chin up, and the best of luck.
Well, that's it for this episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to it at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com so you'll get notices of new episodes, and please share it with your friends and colleagues in the voiceover world. Also, it would be a huge help if you'd like this podcast and rate it on iTunes to help keep it near the top of the list. Feel free to share your comments and questions about this episode and future topics you'd like discussed at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com. And if you'd like more information on one-on-one coaching where we focus on growing your business, feel free to drop me a line at my cyber assistant's email address at mike@johnmelly.com. Thanks for listening. Now go out there and share your voice with the world.